Spring 1945. Outside a British military base near London, German prisoners of war bent over their assigned tasks, repairing fences and tending to the grounds. The war was winding down, but for these men, captured during the final Allied pushes across Europe, each day brought the same routine of supervised labor and quiet resignation. Then something extraordinary happened that would challenge everything they thought they knew about their captors. A military ambulance rumbled into the motor pool, its engine coughing and sputtering. The vehicle came to a stop, and out stepped a young woman in the khaki uniform of the Auxiliary Territorial Service. She couldn't have been more than 19, with careful movements and an air of quiet determination. Without hesitation, she rolled up her sleeves and popped the hood. The German prisoners exchanged glances. Something about her seemed familiar, yet entirely out of place. As she began checking oil levels and examining the engine with practiced hands, whispers spread among the men in hushed German. "Isn't that—" one began, unable to finish the sentence. Another shook his head in disbelief. "It cannot be. A princess would never be here doing this work." But it was. Princess Elizabeth, heir to the British throne and future Queen of England, was serving as a mechanic and driver in the women's branch of the British Army. For men raised under the rigid hierarchies of the Wehrmacht, where nobility remained distant and untouchable, the sight was nothing short of revolutionary. To understand how the future queen found herself with grease under her fingernails, we must look back to Britain's darkest hours. When Germany declared war in 1939, the nation faced an existential threat unlike any in its history. The Blitz rained terror from the skies night after night, killing over 40,000 civilians and destroying millions of homes. U-boats strangled supply lines, sinking merchant vessels faster than they could be replaced. Every family felt the war's bite through strict rationing that reduced basic foods to mere subsistence levels, blackouts that plunged cities into darkness, and the constant fear of invasion. The royal family became symbols of resistance and resilience during these desperate times. King George VI and Queen Elizabeth refused to flee London during the bombing campaigns, instead visiting devastated neighborhoods and comforting survivors. When Buckingham Palace itself was bombed 9 times, the Queen famously declared, "I'm glad we've been bombed. It makes me feel I can look the East End in the face." Their presence in the capital during the worst attacks sent a powerful message. If the monarchy could endure the danger, so could the British people. Princess Elizabeth, just 13 when the war began, watched from Windsor Castle as her nation fought for survival. She and her sister Margaret had been evacuated for safety, but as the years passed and Elizabeth approached adulthood, she grew increasingly restless. Around her, young women were joining the war effort in unprecedented numbers, taking on roles traditionally reserved for men. They drove trucks through bombed-out streets, operated anti-aircraft guns that defended cities from Luftwaffe raids, and worked in munitions factories producing the weapons that would ultimately win the war. The Women's Land Army recruited over 80,000 women to work on farms, replacing men who had gone to fight. The Women's Royal Naval Service, the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, and the Auxiliary Territorial Service collectively employed hundreds of thousands of women in vital military roles. These were not ceremonial positions but essential jobs that required skill, courage, and dedication. By 1944, as Elizabeth neared her 18th birthday, her desire to contribute more directly to the war effort had become overwhelming. She had given speeches, including a memorable radio address to children of the Commonwealth in 1940, participated in morale-boosting events, and supported various war charities. She had learned to knit and spent countless hours creating socks and scarves for soldiers. But it wasn't enough. She wanted to serve alongside her generation, to share in their sacrifices and prove that royal privilege came with royal responsibility. The Auxiliary Territorial Service had been established in 1938, allowing women to serve in various military capacities. These women drove ambulances through bombed-out streets during air raids, maintained vital equipment that kept the war machine running, operated searchlights and anti-aircraft equipment, and freed up men for combat roles on the front lines. For Elizabeth, the ATS represented a chance to serve her country in a meaningful way, to contribute skills that would make a real difference in the war effort. Her parents were horrified by the suggestion. King George VI, protective of his eldest daughter and acutely aware of the dangers that London still faced from V-1 flying bombs and V-2 rockets, initially refused to consider it. The idea of the heir to the throne engaging in manual labor alongside common soldiers was unprecedented, and, to many in the royal household, unthinkable. Court advisors worried about the security implications, the breach of protocol, and the potential for accidents or injuries that could affect the line of succession. But Elizabeth was persistent and articulate in her arguments. She pointed out that she would turn 18 in April 1944, making her eligible for military service like any other British woman. She argued passionately that she could not, in good conscience, remain safely sheltered while others of her generation made such sacrifices. She pointed to the countless women already serving, many from aristocratic families, who had set aside comfort and privilege for duty. Lady Diana Cooper was driving ambulances. The Duchess of Gloucester was working in a factory, and numerous other titled women had taken on essential war work. Elizabeth also understood the symbolic importance of her service. The monarchy's survival depended on its ability to connect with the people, especially during such trying times. If she remained isolated from the common experience of war, how could she ever truly understand or represent her future subjects? Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, eventually supported her daughter's wishes. She understood the political and social implications better than most. The monarchy had already adapted significantly during the war, and this would be another step in its evolution. After months of deliberation, careful planning, and extensive security discussions, King George VI finally relented. In February 1945, Princess Elizabeth was appointed an honorary second subaltern in the ATS, with the service number 230873. She was determined to be treated like any other recruit, without special privileges or accommodations. This was not to be a ceremonial appointment or a publicity stunt designed for propaganda purposes. She would undergo the same training, follow the same rules, and perform the same duties as every other member of the service. Elizabeth's enlistment marked a radical departure from centuries of royal tradition. She registered under the name Elizabeth Windsor and reported to the ATS No. 1 Mechanical Transport Training Center in Camberley, Surrey. The facility was a sprawling complex of workshops, classrooms, and barracks, where hundreds of women learned the technical skills necessary to keep Britain's military vehicles operational. Her days began before dawn with physical training and military drills, followed by intensive classroom instruction covering everything from engine theory to military protocol. The curriculum was comprehensive and demanding. Students learned about internal combustion engines, electrical systems, hydraulic brakes, and transmission mechanisms. They studied military maps, convoy procedures, and emergency repair techniques that could mean the difference between life and death in combat situations. The training was rigorous and comprehensive, designed to produce competent mechanics and drivers who could handle any situation. Elizabeth learned to operate various military vehicles, from heavy trucks capable of carrying tons of supplies to nimble motorcycles used for dispatch riding. She studied engine mechanics in detail, learning to diagnose problems by sound, to repair electrical systems in the dark, and to perform transmission overhauls under field conditions. Her instructors taught her to read military maps with precision, to navigate in convoy formations without lights during blackout conditions, and to perform routine maintenance under the most challenging circumstances. She learned to change tires in record time, to jump-start vehicles with dead batteries, and to jury-rig repairs using whatever materials were available. Despite her royal status, Elizabeth insisted on being treated as an equal. She ate her meals with fellow trainees in the mess hall, participated in all exercises without exception, and adhered to the same standards and expectations as everyone else. Her fellow ATS members initially found it surreal to have a princess among them, but her dedication and humility quickly earned their respect. One of her training companions later recalled, "She never asked for special treatment. She was one of us, willing to do the hard work and learn the skills necessary to be an effective member of the ATS. She got her hands just as dirty as the rest of us, and she never complained about the long hours or difficult conditions." Elizabeth's training included everything from basic engine repair to advanced mechanical troubleshooting. She learned to diagnose carburetor problems, to rewire electrical systems, and to rebuild transmissions from the ground up. Her instructors noted her keen interest and natural aptitude for mechanical work, skills that would serve her well throughout her life. She had an excellent memory for technical details and could quickly identify problems that stumped other trainees. The physical demands were considerable and unrelenting. Days began at 600 hours with calisthenics and drill practice, followed by 8 hours of intensive training that often extended well into the evening. Elizabeth's hands became calloused from handling tools and equipment. Her uniforms bore the same grease stains and wear marks as those of her fellow trainees. She learned to work efficiently, even when exhausted, to maintain concentration during long shifts, and to take pride in work well done regardless of how mundane the task might seem. The training regimen included practical exercises designed to simulate real-world conditions. Trainees worked on vehicles in all weather conditions, performed repairs in simulated blackout situations, and learned to work quickly under pressure. Elizabeth excelled in these exercises, demonstrating both technical competence and the ability to remain calm under stress. Photographs from this period show her in overalls working on engines, changing tires, and getting thoroughly dirty, activities far removed from the typical duties of a princess. The press dubbed her Princess Auto Mechanic, and her service was widely covered in newspapers and newsreels both in Britain and around the world. The images were powerful propaganda tools, showing that even royalty was committed to the war effort. The public reaction was overwhelmingly positive. Here was their future queen, rolling up her sleeves and doing her part for the war effort. It was a powerful symbol of national unity and shared sacrifice that resonated deeply with a population that had endured years of hardship, rationing, and loss. Letters poured into Buckingham Palace expressing admiration and support for the princess's decision to serve. But perhaps the most profound impact was felt by those who witnessed her service firsthand, including the German prisoners of war who worked at various British military installations. By 1945, Britain held approximately 400,000 German prisoners, the largest such population of any Allied nation. These men, products of a rigid military culture where class distinctions were absolute, found themselves confronting a reality that challenged their fundamental assumptions about leadership and society. The German POW experience in Britain was markedly different from what Nazi propaganda had predicted. Instead of the brutal treatment they had been told to expect, they found themselves in camps that, while strictly controlled, provided adequate food, medical care, and even educational opportunities. Many prisoners worked on farms, in factories, or on construction projects helping to address the severe labor shortages that the war had created. For the German POWs, the sight of Princess Elizabeth in uniform, performing the same duties as her fellow ATS members, was both bewildering and enlightening. In their homeland, the concept of nobility engaging in manual labor was virtually unheard of. The German military maintained strict hierarchies where officers and enlisted men rarely mixed, and the idea of aristocracy working alongside common soldiers was inconceivable. The Nazi system had emphasized the importance of hierarchy, racial superiority, and the divine right of leaders to command without question. The sight of British royalty voluntarily subjecting itself to military discipline and manual labor contradicted everything they had been taught about the nature of authority and leadership. One former POW later recounted, "We couldn't believe our eyes. There she was, the princess, with grease on her hands, working on an engine like any mechanic. It was a sight that challenged everything we thought we knew about the British and their class system." This reaction, while not officially documented, reflects the broader cultural shock that many German prisoners experienced when confronted with British democratic values in action. The Nazi propaganda machine had spent years portraying Western democracies as decadent and corrupt, led by weak aristocrats who lived in luxury while their people suffered. Yet here was living proof of the opposite, a future monarch who chose to serve rather than be served, who embraced hardship rather than comfort. The impact on POW morale was significant. Many began to question the propaganda they had been fed about their enemies. If the British princess could work alongside common soldiers, what did that say about the nature of British society? How did it compare to their own leaders, many of whom had retreated to underground bunkers, while ordering others to fight to the death? Word of Elizabeth's service spread through the prisoner camps, though such information was often filtered through official channels and censorship. Guards reported overhearing animated discussions among the Germans about the princess mechanic. Some prisoners requested permission to write letters home describing what they had witnessed, though most of these accounts were heavily censored by military authorities. The cultural shock was profound and lasting. These men had been raised in a society that valued rigid hierarchy and unquestioning obedience to authority. The sight of authority voluntarily subjecting itself to the same conditions as those it governed was revolutionary and challenged their fundamental understanding of how societies should function. As Elizabeth's training progressed through the spring of 1945, she qualified as a fully competent driver and mechanic. Her service was not merely symbolic. She actively participated in the maintenance and operation of military vehicles, contributing to the overall efficiency of her unit. She drove ambulances through London's bomb-damaged streets, navigating around craters left by V-2 rockets and debris from damaged buildings. Her duties included transporting wounded soldiers to field hospitals, often working under dangerous conditions, as the city still faced occasional attacks. She worked long shifts maintaining the vehicles that kept the military machine running, ensuring that ambulances, supply trucks, and staff cars remained operational, despite the harsh conditions and constant use. Her fellow ATS members came to rely on her skills and dedication. She volunteered for extra shifts, particularly when vehicles needed urgent repairs or when driver shortages threatened mission effectiveness. Her commanding officers noted her exceptional work ethic and technical competence in their reports, treating her achievements as they would any other soldiers. The work was often dangerous and always demanding. London was still under occasional attack from V-1 flying bombs and V-2 rockets, and military convoys remained targets for enemy action. Elizabeth drove through blackout conditions, navigated around bomb craters, and operated in environments where mechanical failure could mean the difference between life and death for wounded soldiers or critical supplies. She learned to work efficiently under pressure, to make quick decisions in emergency situations, and to maintain her equipment in peak condition despite limited resources and harsh operating conditions. Her instructors noted that she had developed an intuitive understanding of mechanical systems and could often diagnose problems faster than more experienced mechanics. In April 1945, her parents, King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, along with her sister, Princess Margaret, visited her training center. The visit was highly publicized, with photographers and newsreel cameras capturing every moment. The images showed the King and Queen observing their daughter as she demonstrated her mechanical skills, explaining engine components and performing routine maintenance tasks with confidence and expertise. Elizabeth later remarked on the extensive preparations for the royal visit, noting with characteristic humor, "I never knew there was quite so much advanced preparation. I'll know another time." The visit served multiple purposes. It showed royal support for the ATS and women's military service, demonstrated Elizabeth's genuine competence in her role, and provided powerful propaganda images for both domestic and international audiences. Despite the media attention, Elizabeth remained focused on her duties. She continued her training and active service right up until the war's end, eventually earning promotion to junior commander and receiving commendation for her service. Her commitment never wavered, even as victory became inevitable and the temptation to return to royal duties grew stronger. The German prisoners who witnessed her service carried these memories with them long after the war ended. Many later spoke of how the experience had changed their understanding of leadership and democracy. They had seen firsthand that in Britain, privilege came with responsibility, and that true nobility was measured not by birth, but by service. This realization had profound implications for post-war Germany. Many former POWs returned home with a new understanding of democratic values and the importance of servant leadership. While their individual stories may not have been officially documented, their collective experience contributed to the broader process of denazification and democratization that transformed German society. On May 8, 1945, Victory in Europe Day was celebrated across Britain with unprecedented jubilation. Elizabeth, still in her ATS uniform, joined her family on the balcony of Buckingham Palace to greet the jubilant crowds that filled the mall and surrounding streets. The sight of the future queen in military uniform, standing alongside her parents as they acknowledged the end of the European war, was a powerful symbol of the monarchy's evolution and its connection to the people. That evening, she and Princess Margaret, accompanied by a group of friends, ventured out into the streets of London to join the celebrations. Disguised in their uniforms, they mingled with the crowds, dancing and singing in the streets. Elizabeth later described it as one of the most memorable nights of my life, a chance to experience the pure joy of victory alongside her future subjects. Her wartime service had a lasting impact that extended far beyond the immediate military contribution. It provided her with a unique perspective on the lives of ordinary citizens and the challenges they faced. Her experiences in the ATS instilled in her a deep appreciation for hard work, discipline, and the importance of service, values that would define her approach to monarchy throughout her 70-year reign. The sight of the young princess, sleeves rolled up, hands covered in grease, working diligently on a military vehicle, became an enduring symbol of duty and dedication. It demonstrated that leadership was not solely about privilege and power, but also about service and humility. For a monarchy that had sometimes seemed distant from its people, Elizabeth's wartime service created a connection that would last for generations. Historians have noted that Elizabeth's decision to serve in the ATS was a pivotal moment in the modernization of the British monarchy. It demonstrated a willingness to break with tradition and engage directly with the realities of the time. Her service endeared her to the public and set a precedent for future generations of royals to participate actively in public service. The transformation was not merely personal, but institutional. The monarchy emerged from the war with enhanced legitimacy and popular support, having proven its relevance and commitment to the nation during its darkest hour. Elizabeth's service was a crucial part of this transformation, showing that the royal family was willing to share in the sacrifices and hardships of war. For Elizabeth herself, the experience was transformative in ways that would influence her entire approach to monarchy. Throughout her reign as Queen Elizabeth II, she maintained a strong connection to the armed forces, serving as ceremonial head of the British Army, Navy, and Air Force. Her first-hand experience in the military informed her interactions with service members and her understanding of military life. Her time in the ATS also fostered a lifelong interest in mechanics and driving. She was known to drive herself on many occasions throughout her life, and her knowledge of vehicle maintenance was often a source of surprise and admiration among those who worked with her. Even in her later years as queen, she would occasionally inspect the engines of state vehicles and offer technical observations that impressed professional mechanics. The story of Princess Elizabeth's service during World War II represents more than just a young woman stepping into an unconventional role. It is a narrative that speaks to the evolving nature of leadership, the breaking down of societal barriers, and the enduring spirit of service that defines true nobility. In reflecting on her time in the ATS years later, Elizabeth once remarked, "I never worked so hard in my life, but I enjoyed it very much." It was a sentiment that encapsulated her approach to duty, a combination of hard work, dedication, and a genuine desire to contribute to the greater good. The image of the future Queen of England working as a mechanic and ambulance driver challenged not only German prisoners' preconceptions, but also traditional notions of monarchy itself. It showed that true leadership meant leading by example, sharing in the hardships of one's people, and proving through action that privilege must be earned through service. The legacy of her wartime service extended well beyond the immediate post-war period. It established a template for royal engagement that emphasized duty, service, and connection with ordinary people. This approach would characterize her entire reign and influence how future generations of the royal family would approach their roles. For the German POWs who witnessed this remarkable sight, it was a lesson in democracy that no amount of propaganda could counter. They had seen with their own eyes that in Britain, even royalty was expected to serve the common good. It was a powerful demonstration of the values that would ultimately triumph in the war and shape the post-war world. The contrast with their own leadership could not have been more stark. While Hitler and his inner circle spent the war's final months in underground bunkers, increasingly disconnected from reality, the British royal family remained visible, engaged, and committed to sharing in their people's struggles. This difference in leadership style would prove to be one of the many factors that contributed to the ultimate Allied victory and the establishment of a more democratic post-war order. If you enjoyed learning about Princess Elizabeth's remarkable wartime service and the incredible impact it had on those who witnessed it, please give this video a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below. Did this story change your perspective on leadership and service? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our latest historical stories. We bring you fascinating, untold tales from history that reveal the extraordinary moments that shaped our world. Your support means everything to us, and helps us continue creating these in-depth historical documentaries. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.